Chapter 13. Sentenced to Lead. In times of crisis, the worst role is that of the leader. 27th December 2033, 4:47 PM. Folder Dominion, Battle Helix. Mana signature C53171. Physical location, Phobos. There's a clinical brutality to a normal bullet. It drills into the target, piercing skin, shattering bones, and ruining organs. Blood showers, and the foe falls. This shot was nothing like that. I'd chosen to fire at a larger, meaner-looking demon I'd pegged as a low-level commander. The miracle of calculation did what it always did. It made the perfect shot seem inevitable. My brain subconsciously processed everything from the speed and acceleration of obstacles that could interrupt the bullet's flight to every visible joint on the target and how they might bend as I was pulling the trigger. I thought of none of these details. I just thought of where I wanted to hit, the center of the monster's head. The monster recoiled as if slapped, but before it could fall, a starburst of white consumed it. Lines raced beneath leathery skin and chitinous plating alike, finding seams and veins, burrowing into every place warmth could be found. Within 2 seconds, the demon's breastplate turned pale and brittle, and the horns on its helm were covered in rime. The creature tried to roar defiance. It gasped for air, allowing killing cold to surge into its lungs. A glaze crawled over wing bones, freezing them into place. The ground beneath it glowed blue-white. A second later, a hungry red consumed the light. The demon's gaze found me. The triumphant grin it had worn a second earlier fled, replaced by abject horror. It did not understand how it would die, only that it would. Its legs tried to flee, and failed to even move an inch. I remembered the cryovolcano folded realm, a realm of fire and ice bound to my miracle of cataclysmic criticals, and I knew what was coming next. My miracle drew raw power, filtered it through the realm, through me, and into the catastrophe unfolding beneath the demon. The ground glowed brighter, the reddish tinge travelling outwards in a widening ring. It passed under the boots of the nearest demons. Their feet hesitated. A brave few lifted their lances, uncertain what to thrust at. Others tried to retreat. For those within a few meters of the first target, their choices did not matter. Ice erupted from the ground underneath the commander. Ice shards followed by liquid fire. First the violent orange of molten rock glimpsed through a crack, then incandescent red. Orange and red flared again, and this time I felt it through my suit, through the soles of my boots. Heat. Real heat. Rising fast. The ice restraining the commander did nothing to protect it, instead holding it in place as it burned from the inside out. The smell was sulfur, bile, and burned meat. It was only then that I realized many of the nearest demons had been trapped in an expanding ice ring, and they were caught by the surge as well. A dozen or 20, it was hard to count because bodies melted into each other. Magma fountained and splashed, and where it struck, chitin melted, flowing into the magma. Lances ignited in their owners' hands. It was a massacre. The humans forming a shield wall did not surge forward yet. They were still staring, trying to understand what kind of god I was, and whether I would turn my divine wrath upon them. I, of course, was not a god. As often accompanied my flashy magical effects, I felt a spiritual fatigue wash over me. My fingers tightened around the replica Glock, not out of fear, but because I needed something solid to hold on to. The fatigue was less than before I had bound Folded Realms, but still, a lot of mana had just been unleashed. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. The demons stared at the carnage in despair, the humans in nervous awe. I took a split second to scan my character sheet, and with almost 20,000 combat XP from this one shot, everything had risen a little. Combat XP, 109,750. Health, 209 out of 209. Mana, 200 out of 209. Resolve, 209 out of 209. Effectiveness lowered by Melody. Bind points, 4. Bind point 1, Cryovolcano, signature F3122647, bound to Miracle of Cataclysmic Criticals. Current mana reserve, 21,100 of 24,000. Bind point 2, Twisted Expanse, signature F77123114, bound to Miracle of Flight. Current mana reserve, 24,000 of 24,000. Bind point 3, nil. Bind point 4, Brimfall Village, signature D7712, current mana reserve, 160,000 of 720,000. That explosion had burned around 3,000 mana. I could never afford that without channeling it through a bound realm. If I wanted to rely upon this ability, I'd need to learn control. I thought calculation might have spent the other 9 mana, and I'd need details. 9 mana wasn't a lot, but my earlier plans to bind the Eternal Library to that miracle hadn't survived the promises I'd made to Shimon, so that cost had to be paid by me, personally. A demon on the edge of the ring recovered first, and lifted its lance towards the children. Instinct snapped me back into the present. I raised the Glock and fired twice, losing a sliver of mana with each. The first shot took it in the throat, the second in the eye, and it folded like anything else. The miracle of cataclysmic criticals did not respond. It likely had one of those cooldowns the trader had talked about, and I cursed myself for not asking Shimon more questions. If I could only turn a fight occasionally, my role was to be a wall breaker, not a machine gunner. I felt the weight of my gun increase slightly, as magic replenished spent bullets. "Now!" I barked, voice echoing up into the vast ceiling. I did not know if they understood the word, but if not, they understood the tone. "Push! Break them!" Only then did my brain catch up to my eyes. I was not in a field, I was in a room, but the room was a world. Pale stone stretched away until a far wall blurred with distance. Wild grasses grew in ragged patches between scuffed flagstones, trampled into mud by heavy boots. Above, the ceiling hung so high that it felt like a sky, lit in a steady noonday glow that came from nowhere. No lamps, no sun, just light. For a moment, I hated that they listened to me, an outsider. But in a crisis, leadership falls to those who act first, whether they should lead or not. The nearest human, a woman with a cracked shield and blood on her cheek, screamed something of her own, and the shield walls surged forward as if they had been waiting for permission. A slight woman in her late 60s, hair a striking blend of orange mixed with white of age, reached the enemy lines first. She slit 2 throats before any demons could react, but once they recovered, the reaction was brutal. A third demon swept low and lifted her leg right off the ground, brutally using the woman's entire body as a cudgel, swinging it first at another attacker and then at the ground itself. Despite her horrific end, her courage inspired others. The human rally was swift, and I harassed surviving demons with long-range shots as they fled. The spiritual fatigue vanished, and I fired into another cluster of demons, again turning thousands of stored mana into fire and ice. The fight had lasted around 10 seconds, and my second massive shot decisively ended it. 6,000 additional combat XP flowed in as lesser demons were impaled or burned. I measured the cooldown on the devastating criticals to be around 8 seconds, which would be useful information in this dangerous realm. An urgent male voice shouted, pointing at me, "Divinitas Irae!" Divinity of Wrath. Perhaps they thought I was from their mythologies, one of their gods come to life? That could be a problem, but at least we shared a language, and I could work with that. I'm no divinity or god. I'm a traveller who will not sit by as monsters harm children, I announced to the crowd in Latin. You're safe around me, but if you want to repay my help, I need information about this world. I didn't like positioning my request as a trade. I'd help because it was right to help. With these people so visibly cowed, a request would be more likely to be trusted. From their perspective, I was an unfathomably powerful threat they owed a favour to. Best to pay in information, and pray it would be enough. A man my own age with a pronounced limp hobbled forward. His skin was even paler than my own, and his hair a striking yellow. I took in more of the scene, these people wearing makeshift gambeson armour and crude spears and knives, if even that. Their hair colours couldn't all be dyes, as they didn't seem to be colouring anything else. "If it pleases the great lady," he uttered obsequiously, "I am Milah. Ask your questions, and I shall answer." I didn't even know what to ask. "I'm from another world, a world called Earth," I said. Dropping that name was a mistake, as everyone gasped. They clearly had myths about it. I thought of my own family, and I had an idea. "I need to know about your world, but the very basics. How do you explain the world to your young children?" "A great lady, I would never presume to treat you like a child," Mila replied, as though this was a test. "I am sure once we bear witness to your majesty and power, our sage council will answer questions I cannot even understand, let alone pretend to answer." I fought to bury my mounting exasperation. The last thing I needed was to terrify these people. Fortunately, a young girl of perhaps 10 stepped forward from the crowd. "I can tell you that, scary magic crossbow lady." Her incandescent blue hair glowed visibly as she spoke. 601 floors make the tower. A
proving ground in a torrid hour. Demons below and angels above. We fight both off to buy time for love.
Some of the adults wanted to restrain her or silence her, terrified her words would invoke a divinity's wrath. I decided to put a stop to that and address the girl directly.
Thank you. My name is Elishia, and you look about the same age as one of my sons. What's your name? I asked, smiling widely. The smile was hard to force after the horrors earlier. I'm Clara, Lady Elishia. Thanks for killing the demons back there. I love my sister Millie, but I don't want to see her again just yet. Ruby will get to see Millie now.
Oh, that could only mean Millie had died. The innocence of youth and the horror of the battlefield almost brought me to tears. I held them off, unsure if the danger was truly past. A lot of tragedies were bottling up.
So these were the demons? I asked, pointing at the corpses.
They were more insectile than Earth mythologies, but otherwise weren't that far off.
What are the angels? My world has neither, but we have stories, where demons are terrible and angels fight against them to protect us. Angels don't protect anyone, Lady Elishia, Clara replied. They are scarier than the demons. When I grow up, I'm going to join the army and fight the angels to protect people on all...
Whatever she was about to say, I heard none of it. A flicker of red catches my eye, and I activate the kinetic deflection bracer that I'd found what felt like a lifetime ago in Brimfall Village. It reacted just in time. A fireball aimed at Clara diverted towards the shield, striking me instead. It detonated, throwing me 10 meters or more like a ragdoll. I recovered quickly, leaping from my back into a kip-up, my now 215 maximum health, boosting me physically beyond even my youth, and I unfurled my wings while airborne. There. I spotted the lance-wielding demon that took the cheap shot, pumped my wings 3 times to gain altitude, and squeezed off a single perfect shot. The demon was dead before the massive overkill eruption. I grimaced at the wasted mana. I really needed to learn control over this miracle. As I allowed myself to glide to the ground a few meters below, I saw a distant, organized human force running towards us. Wielding halberds and better armor than the irregulars I'd arrived just near, they were mostly younger adults. An oddly familiar woman, carrying a cruelly spiked halberd and wearing full plate painted a reflective white, bellowed an order in accented Latin. Older than the others but younger than me, the woman looked tough, although waist-length pink hair struck a striking contrast to her other features. I finally placed why she looked familiar. Her face was a dead ringer for an Austrian influencer whose workout videos I'd often followed back after childbirth, right down to the first creases of age lining her face.
Ruby, Myla, report! Scout store explosions and an angel here.
Myla turned and raised his knife to the sky in an unfamiliar gesture that could be a salute, an all clear, or something different entirely. His words began in code, a word salad that I understood none of. After that, he simply pointed to the corpses.
Surprise attack on our position. 5,009 demons dead, Praefectus. Ruby was the only one of us to kill too. This off-worlder saved us all. She claimed 4,008 hornheads in a quarter minute, then deflected and absorbed a bolt from a fire lance that was aimed at one of the cadets. Praefectus, I know it's unbelievable. Let the corpses speak. They'll tell you everything. I remained silent as the officer performed a cursory battlefield autopsy. Every shattered wing, every scorched corpse, and every half-melted icicle corroborated Miller's account. And the scouts that sighted an angel, the officer added. Stories say they hate the demons, but I don't trust stories. I've seen the damage a rampaging angel can do. Irrepressible little Clara interjected with an answer. Lady Elishia here isn't an angel, Lady Praefectus. Her wings aren't silver, gold, or black. She doesn't carry a spear, and she came through a portal with 8 sides. She's seen Earth.
Quiet, girl, Miller said in damage control, but the melody, once shattered, doesn't easily return. I decided it was time to speak up personally. I'm not an angel, and I'm not from your world, Lady Praefectus. I don't know why you fight angels or demons, but I'll never stand back when children are attacked. I'll protect the weak against anyone who will take advantage of them. Others among the irregulars and the children nodded, and the officer accepted their testimony. She barked out orders. Miller, I know you'll want to hand Ruby to the Ignis Consecratus yourself, but your burden comes first. Take this command stone, she threw a small emerald to the man, and fortify yourself and your charges 2 stairs back. It's bad here, and we can't lose your... She looked at me, and immediately changed the word she was about to say. Irreplaceable teaching skills. She turned to me. If you want to see why we fight, come with me. The scouting force left at a jog, and I easily kept pace. Gravity and air were just like Earth, but it took a little while to work out why the surroundings seemed so foreign.
No light sources were present, but the area was still lit in a noonday glow. The Praefectus told me that her name was Luna, and she corroborated the tale of 73 floors, with humans caught in a vice between angels above and demons below. Only ancient records state the total number of floors, but they agree on 6,001. Since then, we've been losing floors. When my grandmother was a girl, we humans held one less than 24 floors. I was born as we were losing the 9th, and I remember the scars and burns on the survivors as we lost the 8th and then the 7th. Worst, I remember the triage tents, where our medics had to let so many die in order to save those that could be saved. We hold merely 6 floors now. We slowed upon reaching an enormous marble pillar 15 metres across that abruptly ended about 30 metres up. A glance confirmed that this was not holding up the ceiling. There were entrances, and the interior of the pillar formed a very unusual spiral staircase down. A cry went up. A male voice shouted, "Praefectus Castorum Luna!" as he placed his polearm by his side and raised a dagger to the sky, and the salute was replicated by dozens of armoured women and men. This was no force of children and the elderly, but a professional military force, staffed mostly by men, with a few women. And it seems that everywhere you go, militaries have their overly formal titles, ranks, and rituals. I stood out, of course. Despite encroaching grey, my reddish-brown hair on earth was often the brightest tone in the room, but among this company, it was positively subdued. Most of the population of the battle helix were just like the irregulars I'd entered near, pale-skinned with extremely bright hair. Wearing an EVA suit over thermals didn't help me fit in. Most line soldiers relaxed in chain shirts, as more muscular soldiers, perhaps frontline elites, stoically bore the weight of suits of full-plate armour. Luna and I sat to talk, but before the first sentence, distant shouts arose. The shouts were repeated closer and then drowned out by the loudest cymbal I have ever heard. The instrument sounds a rhythm everyone immediately understands. One clash, a long pause, another clash, a long pause, then 3 rapid clashes. I don't know their military doctrines, but this signal could only mean one thing: an attack. I leaped to my feet, and instincts took over. I ran behind Luna into one of the entrances into the pillar, and immediately stopped to take stock. Inside the pillar, 2 spiral staircases curved downward, winding into the familiar double helix shape. On the other staircase and 40 metres below us, 3 flaming lances heralded a far larger force of the insectile demons. I counted that there were 6 half-turns of the spiral below us, which put them on the other thread. One of the largest demons at the front raised its lance, cackled, and bellowed, "Praefectus, I will boil your children alive!" Then pointed the lance at Luna and conjured a fireball. The lance's energy dimmed, and the fireball hurtled towards her. Well, that certainly answered all my ethical questions about intervening. Fortunately, I had just the suggestion to a limited projectile. I shouted, "Get clear of me!" Unfortunately for Luna and the other 2 soldiers walking with us, they instinctively obeyed. My bracer pulled the fireball towards me. The fireball didn't splash far enough to harm anyone else, and the force slammed me into the wall. White flashed across my vision, and the world lurched sideways. Something in my left wrist shifted and felt wrong, and heat flooded my forearm. I grimaced, but endured the pain. I didn't need that hand to shoot. Dozens of calculations compressed into a millisecond as I lined up a retaliatory shot, made certain no allies would be hit, and squeezed the trigger. Human soldiers glanced curiously at the unfamiliar sound of a gunshot behind them, then gazed in awe at the carnage the shot unleashed. I stared intently, expecting the leader to have a bound-folded realm that would rupture, but if the demon had bound realms, it was too proud, too sure of its own immortality, to hide behind them. 3 liquids surged from the leading demon that I'd struck. First, of course, there was the blood, reddish ichor that bubbled and boiled. You expect that on any next strike. Moments later came a surge of water or slush, bursting forth from the slain demon in torrents and washing over fiends in trailing rows. Small droplets crystallized into snowflakes, larger drops flash froze and struck at random as hail. Fiends slowed, slipped, and 3 fell dozens of windings of the staircase down to a distant floor. The final liquid did by far the most damage. Magma erupted from the demon corpse, washing over those too slow to break ranks and jump. Creatures that jumped did best. Unable to support true flight, the demon wings were still suitable for gliding. With one shot, the battle was over before it truly began. Luna's voice commanded, "Charge! Secure the fire lances now, before they regroup. They may turn the tide and save our brethren above." A group of 10 elites charged forward towards the corpses, finishing off 2 injured demons and carrying back lancers. 1 spoke a word only their companions could catch, and 6 returned, lifted the corpse of the demon I'd struck, and carried it up. I checked my mana and knew that I could not keep unleashing carnage on this level. Each apocalypse drained around 3,000 mana from the cryovolcano realm, and I was only regaining 6 points per minute. 6 was better than the 1 per minute on Phobos, but it wasn't enough to fire more than a few shots per day. This shot had been worth it, but I'd have less options to deal with the next crisis, whatever that might be. The main force regrouped in peace outside the staircase, leaving a small watch behind. The elites returned, 3 reverently holding a lance each, and the remainder hauling a corpse. Their faces told of exhaustion and exhilaration at the same time. "Praefectus Castorum Luna!" one of the heavily armoured men shouted, repeating the knife-high salute. "This corpse contains a treasure beyond compare, won back after being lost for decades." Luna's eyes widened, then turned towards me. Reluctance crept over her face as she declared, "We all saw who won that fight and claimed this realm. Offworlder Elishia saved many lives, slew the realm-augmented fiend, and seized the fire lancers. Our laws are clear, the realm is hers." She said it like it hurt, as though she was gifting food while her people starved, but she remained stoic. I walked up to the realm and was promptly informed by the system that this was merely an F-ranked realm. I recalled the wording of my quest. If I claimed this, I would fail. Luna's face made my decision clear. This close to the corpse, I could sense echoes of verdant meadows leaking out of the realm's hidden entrance. "Praefectus Luna, your laws grant this F-ranked folded realm to me, correct?" She nodded, and I turned to the troops. "Is she a good leader? The best among you?" Some nodded enthusiastically, some with subdued movements, but none said or did anything to change my mind. "Then Praefectus, with these women and men as witness, I gift it to you. Serve your people well." Silence hung, a silence as oppressive and complete as the surface of Phobos, until a holler shattered it as Luna bound the realm. First 1 voice, then 6, then everyone. "Gladius Sanctus Luna!" Luna spoke just 2 words herself. "Invocate Celeritatem." Invoke Speed. She spoke, and the universe responded. She ran back to the nearby pillar stairs, launched herself several steps straight up in a parkour move, then flipped and ran back at speeds eclipsing any Earth sprinter. Her full plate posed little or no resistance as she jumped around. Had she just chosen a miracle for herself, rather than having them assigned? Luna ran back, then turned to the smallest among her elite forces, a man with Nordic features and bright blue hair. "Toman, you have long been the anchor among my elite forces. You've saved my life twice, been a loyal friend, and the father of my children. You're the best among our force. I must depart with these fire lancers to help the top floor fight the wrath of the heavens. I must, therefore, sentence you to lead here." Toman rose and raised his blade into the air in a silent salute. Tears flowed down his cheeks, and he fell to the ground before the first cry of Praefectus Castorum Toman rose from the ground. Luna turned to me. "Realm Gifter Elishia, I would show you the wrath of the heavens so that you can understand our plight. Would you accompany me? It's about as far as the Legend of Marathon, but something tells me that that will not stop you." "Why not? If I was to contact Earth and maybe secure passage home, I needed to bind this realm. And what better first step than to learn about its central conflict?" I nodded. Luna kissed the newly appointed Praefectus Toman fiercely, then stepped back and held her knife to the sky as Toman returned the salute. And then she lifted the 3 heavy-looking fire lancers and ran. I ran as fast as I could sprint when I'd been 20. But unlike those days, I just didn't need to stop. Luna realized I couldn't keep up with her over short distances, but she adjusted and we ran together. Miles fell away. A silly thought jumped into my head. I'm the first Earth woman, or person for that matter, to run a 3-minute mile, and nobody is going to see it. I let the thought linger. After today's carnage, frivolous thoughts and relaxation were exactly what I needed. My left wrist pulsed in time with my footsteps. The injury wasn't urgent. I blocked out other thoughts and just enjoyed the run.